Hi, this is Dr. David Dobson. Welcome to Conversations. Today, my guest is Dr. Saeed Rahman. Saeed is assistant professor at UFV School of Business at University of the Fraser Valley. He holds a PhD in International Management Organization from University of Victoria. Today, we will be discussing his research on how leveraging ecological knowledge can regenerate local places. His study has been published in special issue of Organization Environment. It's a great pleasure to have you with me today, Saeed.
Oh, thank you so much, David. And really, really great pleasure to be part of your show today. And you just told me that it's the 60th episode, so super excited to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah, you for coming in today. Before we delve into your research, can you explain what ecological knowledge is?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And this term, ecological knowledge, primarily, is based on the modern ecology literature. And I was really, really fascinated at the beginning of my PhD study to understand what exactly it means. So it's a great question. Ecological knowledge, in simple term, I would say it's knowledge about nature. So, like it's place-based, geographically specific, understanding of nature, nature's interactions, processes, and functioning. So basically, holders of ecological knowledge, they usually, generate this knowledge from their systematic and long-term observations and experimentation with how nature functions and how nature interacts with other social elements. So just to give you one example, say local fishermen, what would be their ecological knowledge? They have built experience-based knowledge about marine ecosystems, including fish behavior, fishing locations, local marine stocks, and how they change over time. So this type of knowledge is based on being there at a particular place and also your observations and understanding of nature for a long time. So there is a long-term element into building this type of knowledge.
What brought your research interest to this topic?
Yeah, I guess I already kind of addressed that question. So basically, I'll go back a little bit to my PhD years. I was reading a lot of different literatures because I was really fascinated about climate change, governance. I was also fascinated about reverse innovations. I was always hoping to do something on sustainability. Then I was reading through literatures on ecological knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge, indigenous knowledge, and those sort of literatures. And I came across a very interesting paper, which was written by my PhD supervisor, Monica Wien, and co-supervisor, Dr. Stefano Pogots. And that paper was on Barilla, the Italian pasta manufacturer Barilla. So they actually, I'm going to make it very short. So they actually found that Barilla decided to work together with farmers in Italy who grow durum wheat. And they also collaborate with scientists and local nonprofit organizations. And they realized that monocropping, like growing the same crop again and again, is bad for nature, especially for soil health. So Barilla decided to collaborate with all those stakeholders, and they eventually came up with, like some processes to help farmers so that they don't have to depend on growing the same crop over and over again. And this was the first article where Monica and Stefano, they introduced the idea of ecological knowledge from business sustainability perspective. So I was really fascinated by this paper. And then I started to read more into the literature, and then I realized, okay, this is what I would like to do for my PhD. And I got both Stefano and Monica on board to be in my PhD committee. So that's kind of like a little bit of background to how I
Nice.
came to the world of sort of ecological knowledge
Yeah.
literature.
Nice. Yeah. So just to build up what you just mentioned, for your research, you studied several certified organic farming organizations. So can you share a little bit about these organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, I mean, ecological, the whole idea of ecological knowledge is that you have to be embedded in the place, you have to be there in the place,
Yeah.
and then understand your interaction with nature and other social elements. So organic, like organic, the farming organizations that I have studied,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit of context. These organizations are based on Vancouver Island,
Uh-huh.
um, and
Okay.
um, and Vancouver Island has always been
Yeah.
pioneering on things like
Yeah.
like local food
Yeah.
and like sustainable food.
Sure.
There has been a movement in
Yeah.
terms of a lot of interest and pressure from important stakeholders like buyers or
Uh-huh.
customers for more natural food, organic
Yeah.
food. So
Yeah.
um, the last 20 years, the island has seen a lot of growth in terms of organic
Mm-hmm.
farming.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, situating my study,
Mm-hmm.
especially the research question that I had, how do organizations learn about ecological knowledge and how do they integrate and utilize this knowledge
Mm-hmm.
for their strategy?
Mm-hmm.
I thought organic farming would be a wonderful
Yeah.
context,
Mm-hmm.
simply because
Mm-hmm.
these farms or farmers, they understand nature, they want to work together with nature,
Yeah.
they want to create that synergy
Mm-hmm.
with working with nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought this would be wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started to reach out to the local organic
Mm-hmm.
organizations. But
Mm-hmm.
for your audience,
Yeah.
these organic farms are very small scale. They're
Okay.
primarily family owned,
Okay.
and many of them would have only 4 or 5 full-time members, including the
Okay.
owner themselves, right?
Okay.
The largest organic farming organization that I have interviewed, they would
Yeah.
have around 150 full-time to part-time employees.
Okay.
So they're not like very, very large
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah. Yeah. So what type of farming these family farms are involved in?
So basically, all types of fruits,
Okay.
mostly vegetables,
Okay.
greens,
Okay.
seasonal green vegetables.
Oh, nice.
Those are in high demand
Yeah.
among their customers.
Okay. Okay. So what did you learn from your research?
Yeah, it's a it's a tough question to address, but I'll try my best.
Okay.
Now, I think it's important to also mention that
Yeah.
when I decided to understand I mean, like explore my research question in the
Yeah.
context of organic farming,
Mhm.
um, I think it's important to also clarify that I had to also situate myself in the
Yeah.
context.
Yeah.
So I realized that I cannot just understand this or
Yeah.
explain this question by
Yeah.
sitting on my desk and
Yeah.
collecting,
Yeah.
looking into all sorts of data. So what I had
Yeah.
to do,
Yeah.
I had to go and work with the farmers.
Oh, nice.
That's really interesting. So
Yeah.
for me to be able to collect data and
Yeah.
gain their trust,
Yeah.
I started to volunteer for a local community organic farming organization.
Uh-huh.
And it took me 6 months to be
Okay.
able to gain their trust when they're
Yeah.
ready to share
Yeah.
their thoughts about their journey with me, right?
Ah.
I volunteered for 6 months for that local
Okay.
organic community farming organization.
Nice.
And that's how I use the snowball sort of sampling technique. So
Yeah.
we would reach out to different farmers and go to
Yeah.
other farmers,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
basically, it was really, really interesting how I position myself
Yeah.
within the context. And I realized that
Yeah.
there are a lot of findings that came out from my
Yeah.
research, but one thing that came out was that it's very, very important
Yeah.
for organizations to work together
Hmm.
with various stakeholders
Yeah.
who do the impact
Hmm.
indirectly or directly. For example,
Yeah.
the organic farming organizations that I worked with, they would frequently work together with their community stakeholders. For example,
Oh,
their customers
okay.
who support them,
Yeah.
the other nonprofit organizations.
Hmm.
Even in some cases, they would work with government agencies.
Yeah.
So this collaboration actually is absolutely important for place-based understanding of nature.
Yeah.
To build ecological knowledge, you have to work together,
Yeah.
and that is something that came up from my research. The other important thing
Yeah.
is this notion of cross-sector collaboration.
Uh-huh.
So cross-sector collaboration when you as a business organization, and then you
Yeah.
have your
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
upstream phase stakeholders or downstream
Mm.
phase stakeholders, and you
Mm.
collaborate with them.
Mm.
And that sort of collaboration is very, very important for
Hmm.
coming up with place-based solutions to local problems. For
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
if farmers are finding it very difficult to,
Hmm.
deal with pollination.
Yeah.
So when they work together and form a cross-sector collaboration, oftentimes
Yeah.
my research found that cross-sector collaboration can help them to come up with a solution to the problem.
Yeah.
Those are two of the major findings that came out from my research.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I find your observation method was very fascinating. Would you call it a ethnography when you went and immerse yourself into the farming
So
lifestyle?
so the method, we call it grounded theory.
Okay.
So basically, my study was inductive, and
Okay. Okay.
I that's why I had to situate myself
Yeah.
in the field, the place
Yeah.
where data come from.
Yeah.
So basically, I utilized the
Yeah.
ground theory method,
Nice.
and it was a qualitative study. I primarily relied on
Yeah.
interviewing
Yeah.
data that comes from interviews.
Nice. Very nice. Very, very fascinating work you did. So, what are some practical implications of your research to organizations in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically, what I found that, and I kind of touched on that in my earlier,
Yeah.
in the earlier question and
Yeah.
answer, is that as an organization, um, there are a couple of things you have to do. One
Yeah.
is to understand your place.
Hmm.
So every organization, whether you are a small scale or large scale,
Yeah.
they depend on certain places,
Yeah.
places where, say, for example, the raw materials come from.
Yeah.
So you have to situate yourself, embed yourself in those places to understand
Mm.
the social and natural interactions that happen, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So basically, that means that organization has to um, go and work together with farmers who
Yeah.
produce their raw materials for them, for example.
Yeah.
And again, I can go back to some of the examples without
Yeah.
mentioning
Yeah.
specific organizations. They work together with, apple farmers, for example,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
They try to understand how apple are grown and when the farmers would need
Hmm.
uh, their support, and
Yeah.
and by just simply interacting with them, frequent interaction with them, they
Right.
actually their understanding of the process of how it is grown, and then
Yeah.
it creates an opportunity for the business organization to also, based on that knowledge,
Yeah.
they can also sort of create their own processes.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
like for example, how to deal with challenges,
Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
deal with when things go wrong, when there is a climate change issues, where
Yeah.
due to climatic conditions, when
Yeah.
Apple
Hmm.
is is not available, then how do you sort of deal with those sort of shortages, right? So
Yeah.
that's one example. The second thing is
Yeah.
Organizations should take a long-term approach rather than
Mm-hmm.
short-term.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, organizations, especially business organizations, would have a very short-term centric sort of, like business model.
Yeah.
But my research, we try to understand that in order for organizations to have that place-based ecological knowledge,
Uh-huh.
they have to take a long-term approach.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and also it's important to mention that,
Mm-hmm.
like if you have a place-based issues,
Mm-hmm.
challenges that you want to solve,
Mm-hmm.
you always have to take that long-term approach
Mm-hmm.
to work together with multiple
Yeah.
uh, stakeholders.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so those are the two things that I
Yeah.
have, realized from the research that
Mm-hmm.
organizations will benefit.
Yeah.
Like especially most of our current problems are place-based problems, right?
Yeah.
So organizations have to be there in the place to work together with various stakeholders and
Mm-hmm.
then take a long-term approach
Yeah.
when it comes to, like their business model.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So, Said, what is your advice for those who want to do further research on this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are opportunities. So for my research, I primarily relied on context of British Columbia, but
Mm-hmm.
there are opportunities if we can do
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Yeah.
um, different contexts, like maybe from India or from somewhere in Africa, somewhere in
Yeah.
South Africa,
Yeah.
or even like in the US.
Yeah.
If we can compare and if we can
Yeah.
have like multiple case studies.
Mm-hmm.
This would be a wonderful. I think
Yeah.
this would be a wonderful research to have a multiple cases to compare and then
Yeah.
understand what are the common
Yeah.
uh, common ideas that emerge from
Yeah.
those studies.
Yeah.
So that would be one avenue for anybody who would like to do research in this
Mm.
topic.
Yeah.
And obviously my research primarily focused on farming,
Yeah.
but this same sort of question
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
problem can be investigated into other industry also. For
Right.
example,
Yeah.
energy,
Yeah.
or like different other industries
Yeah.
that anybody would be curious to work with. So I would say,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
multiple case studies, and then maybe,
Yeah.
exploring into different other sectors, different other industries.
Yeah.
That'll be
Yeah.
kind
Oh,
of
absolutely.
for future
Yeah.
uh, studies.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because I think what you have done is it's a great example for small businesses, cottage industries or other type of small businesses.
Sure.
So you did so much exciting work, and your PhD is definitely is very fascinating. So how does this experiences shaped you as a professor? Now you teach and you research, and you also involved in a lot of nonprofit work, including Enactus Club. So can you talk about some of the thing you're doing
Absolutely.
right
No,
now?
like my research in
Yeah,
sustainability,
yeah,
and very recently my
yeah,
interest to
yeah,
understand regeneration,
yeah,
uh, and this whole notion of regenerative sustainability and
yeah, yeah,
place-based knowledge,
yeah,
how organizations can benefit from place-based understanding of
yeah,
social ecological interaction. So I think as a researcher and somebody who's
yeah.
um, this is going to be my fifth year in at UFV. I think I
Nice.
have a lot to I have a long way to go,
Yeah.
but I think what drives me is obviously my passion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about sustainability, and I would like to see that this
Yeah.
passion,
Yeah.
I can sort of help my
Mm-hmm.
students, my colleagues,
Yeah.
my community
Yeah.
of like-minded
Yeah.
scholars,
Yeah.
like academics who share the same sort of passion.
Yeah.
And that actually drives me to be involved in a lot of projects, David, as you know.
Yeah.
I'm actually leading our school's
Mm-hmm.
Prime Initiative, the
Yeah.
UN Prime Initiative, as well as Enactus Initiative.
Nice.
I think these are wonderful ways for me to connect our students
Mhm.
to both theory and practice.
Right.
So through Enactus, for example, Enactus
Yeah.
UFV,
Yeah.
and I try to bring in my like research
Yeah.
passion,
Yeah.
experience,
Experience.
helping the
Yeah.
students to run
Yeah.
different projects and
Yeah.
have better impact, more impact on
Yeah.
our community through those projects.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would say passion
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
opportunities. I'm always looking for opportunities to learn
Yeah.
more. I
Yeah.
collaborate with
Yeah.
colleagues from not just business and management, but I
Yeah.
have previously collaborated with colleagues from environmental science,
Yeah.
from geography. I
Yeah.
frequently collaborate with Food and Agriculture Institute at
Yeah.
UFV. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm all over the place,
Yeah.
but it's just a passion that drives me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, definitely you're very passionate and I know that your students love being in your class and definitely you're shaping their lives. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for your time, Said, and best wishes on the important work you do.
Thank you so much, David, for having me on your show.